A good afternoon and welcome to Live Impact News right here on 13 News Now Plus. It's 1:01 p.m. March 3rd, 2026. It is a Tuesday. Not only that, it is Primary Tuesday in North Carolina, where there is a race with massive implications for a United States Senate seat. We are going to get to that story later on. We'll give you the foundation of why that is such an important race on this primary day, 9 months out from those midterm elections. But we begin the stream, as we so often do, with an introduction of the People's producer, Nia Campbell, sitting in the studio, in the building for her second stream of the day. What's going on, Nia?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm all right. How'd everything go this morning?
It went smooth.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, I hope that, we're letting the people know there is a morning stream, 10 to 12, featuring Eugene Daniel. Nia Campbell was the producer on that stream today. We encourage everyone to go and watch that stream as well, but not to replace us with that stream. You might enjoy that one as well. For now, though, we're glad you're here with us in the afternoon, and we are especially thankful that Taylor Stephenson is here with us in the afternoon to talk about the weather. Taylor, I'm looking over here at this particular tower cam, and you can't see anything. It is so foggy outside.
It is. The fog lingers for the peninsulas, unfortunately. And places around the peninsulas will not see the warmth that places around the south side in North Carolina will today because of that.
So it's the same sort of confluence of events that's creating the fog that's going to affect the temperatures.
Yes. So we have like the moisture we had from overnight that lingered and that allowed for the fogginess, and also the wet roads we had this morning. Here's a look at visibilities across the area, and you can see.
Look at that.
This is not. This is Norfolk. So this looks like our camera's not working. It is actually working perfectly.
I thought that was fog.
That's
fog.
What I'm saying is it looks like it's not working.
That's a functioning camera.
Yeah, that is a functioning camera at this moment. That is just fog.
It is so. As I was driving into Norfolk to the station for work, the tops of many of the sort of skyscraper level buildings completely cut off. Could not see the tops at all. It is so foggy out there, which creates sort of an interesting vibe. It's spooky. It's ethereal. In sort of like a spooky way, right? So it's the fog kind of gives it, I think it's a nice feeling. I kind of like it.
You brought the dictionary words out for that one.
Well, you said colloquial yesterday, so
yeah,
I had to do something.
I did.
I had
that
to come
true.
with the heat. I had to come with the return fire. And there's another one out in Newport News. So look at the haze. Go ahead, Nia.
Can I ask you a question right quick?
Sure.
So because I usually associate fog with the morning time, and then usually as the day goes on, it goes away.
Yes.
Like, what keeps it around?
So right now it's the cloud cover, because usually when you have the sunlight helps to warm up the ground and it lets the fog lift. We're so cloudy right now that the sun hasn't been able to really help to bring some of that warmth back. So.
Got it. Great question. Great answer. Because that is true. I never really thought of that, but it is foggy in the mornings and then dissipates, but it's so cloudy today that it doesn't matter.
It's so cloudy. I mean, you can see, like, even without the fog there on the horizon there from city center, it's still a cloudy day regardless of the fog. But yeah, so as the temperatures rise, it allows for the fog to kind of burn off. Fog doesn't really burn off. Yeah. But so the sunshine usually helps that, but we haven't had any sunshine in those areas. Now, North Carolina, completely different story. As you look at the visibilities here on Max 1, you can see that North Carolina is clear when it comes to visibilities. And I'm going to show you actually a look at temperatures here across the area so you can see the difference when it comes to those who have fog and those who do not. So as we look at around the area, you can see that North Carolina doing well, south side starting to clear up. It's really Norfolk, northern Virginia Beach, northern Chesapeake, some places around Smithfield, and Surrey County still hanging on to some fog, but peninsulas are struggling this afternoon with those low visibilities. Melfa, West Point, Tappahannock down to half a mile to a quarter of a mile worth of visibility. So please be very careful driving in those conditions, because it will give you some road troubles. Use your low beams and take your time. Now look at the difference in temperatures between those who do not have fog, which is North Carolina, and those who do have fog, which is the peninsulas. I mean, you're talking a 15-degree temperature difference between Saluda and Currituck. because the fog is really hindering those temperatures and the cloud cover there as well. But let's take a look at our satellite and radar. In some places around the peninsula, still getting in on some wet weather, a few isolated showers, and maybe even some areas of sleet were ongoing over the bay during the noon hour. So if you are watching Live Impact News and you are seeing sleet in your area, let us know. Now, the good news is, here's the good news. So the cold front that I showed you, or the stalled front I showed you yesterday, that was a cold front on Sunday, is actually lifting to the north as a warm front today. Let's see if I can get my mouse to work. So a warm front today, and that warm front will bring us in some of that warmer air later on this afternoon. You can also see from the satellite and radar that our cloud cover is starting to diminish in places like Elizabeth City, Nags Head. We get into the Albemarle Sound, and you're seeing sky starting to clear. Look at the south side. We're seeing still some thick cloud cover, but slowly clearing from southeast to northwest. This is a look at the peninsulas, and you can see that our satellite and radar are picking up on some isolated showers, and the pink is actually areas of sleet. So sleet over the bay, some sleet just south of Chincoteague, sleet just to the east of Cape Charles, and then an isolated shower over the middle peninsula, and then heading into Surrey County and Isle of Wight.
It looks like on the western side of the peninsula there, as soon as the sleet hits the land, it changes over into rain. Is that right? Is
that
that
is
just
right.
because over the water, it's a little easier for it to stay at that
The
element?
waters are cooler than the land.
Yeah, okay.
So, yes, the air over the water is much cooler than the air over the land, and that's why it seems like it's changing over.
So no boating today.
You could.
Maybe a little bit. It won't be the
You
most
might need a
pleasant.
poncho.
Yes, exactly. Okay, good.
A poncho as you head on boating, but you can see the rest of the south side, North Carolina, fairly dry. Now, here's what we're tracking over the next few days is a damp start, but milder today. And then we get into tomorrow, and it's warming up with afternoon temperatures dipping from a backdoor cold front, and then we'll have a prolonged warming trend through the weekend. Now I'm going to go ahead and reset my graphics so that we can get rid of this tracker so you can see the graphics clearly here. But you can see that cloud cover is still sticking around here through the early afternoon, but you'll probably be amazed to see how quickly this cloud cover clears. So this is through about 2 o'clock, still some mostly cloudy skies. Look at 4:30. All that cloud cover really starts to push away. Temperatures will rise around the eastern south side to the upper 50s at best, around North Carolina, upper 50s, but inland lower to mid 50s. And then you head to the peninsulas where the cloud cover and the fog will linger the longest, and temperatures could be easily 10 to 15 degrees colder this afternoon, with highs in the mid 40s to the low 50s. So it's going to be a mixed bag of people who see a cool day, those who see a near normal day. We'll have a few more passing showers for the peninsulas later on tonight, mainly northern neck and eastern shore through tonight and very, very early tomorrow morning. But after that, the rain stops. Now, tomorrow should be a beautiful day, a mix of sun and clouds, temperatures starting off very mild, lower 50s. To give you some perspective, our normal high temperature is around 57 degrees. So we're starting off tomorrow morning just shy of normal afternoon high temperatures. Then by the afternoon tomorrow, we're rising to the mid 60s. So it should be a beautiful day, but that's not as far as we'll climb. Look at this 7-day forecast. It's going to be gorgeous. Temperatures Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and most likely into Tuesday. Temperatures will stay in the mid 70s. We have low end rain chances Friday through Monday, but it should just stay mostly dry and partly cloudy at best. So It should be a really beautiful end to the week. And I don't want to hear any complaints from anybody who complained all winter that it was cold. You were right. But the complaints were coming to the complaint department. And I don't want to hear anything else this weekend, because you have an opportunity to have a beautiful weekend in Hampton Roads. Do not squander it.
I've been telling everyone about this. Everyone I talk to, I'm like, you guys won't believe what Taylor said today. Get ready for this weekend. It is going to be perfection in terms of weather. Okay, this all looks great. We'll keep our eyes on those rain chances, but there's a warm-up coming. Just got to make it through a cloudy, foggy day today.
Yep.
An up and down Wednesday, but really mostly an up Wednesday even. I mean, Wednesday's not bad either. We're spoiled by the Friday, Saturday, Sunday that we got coming up.
Exactly.
Okay, this looks fantastic. Is there anything else we need to know?
No, I think that's about it. The forecast is very straightforward, so I just encourage everybody to enjoy this taste of spring because these temperatures, Thursday through Monday, are actually typical temperatures of late April and early May.
A taste of spring. Okay,
Yes.
That's beautiful. We are going to title today's weather segment A Taste of Spring. We have officially given a title to our weather segment. Thank you so much, Taylor. You're the best. We'll see you at 4 o'clock.
No, I'm working the mornings today.
You're outta here.
I'm about to finish my story.
Okay.
I guess I can plug my story for later on.
Yes, give us a plug.
So this week is North Carolina's Severe Weather Preparedness Week. March 1st marked the start of meteorological spring, which is also the start of severe weather season that rolls through March through May. So every year, the Weather Service partners with local emergency managers to put on a Severe Weather Preparedness Week in all states. So North Carolina's Severe Weather Preparedness Week is this week. Virginia's is next week. But my story is about how there will be a statewide tornado drill tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. So I don't want people to be afraid if you hear tornado sirens going off. That is them just practicing. They also encourage you at home, you at schools, at businesses to also participate in the tornado drill to make sure that you have a safety plan when severe weather strikes. It's always best to prepare when we have temperatures like on Wednesday tomorrow, which will be near 70, and it's sunny, where you don't have to worry about severe weather, so you can hash out your plans. What went wrong? What went well? Do you have safety kits in case of severe weather? Especially here in Virginia, one of the main things in southeastern Virginia that we deal with, and northeastern North Carolina, is flooding. So making sure that you have those plans in place just in case when severe weather strikes, you don't have to think twice. You already know what to do in those situations.
The tornado drills were always a strange one in school. Those are always a little bit more unique. We were very used to fire drills where you get up and go outside. Those tornado drills, you kind of get low to the ground.
Yep.
You're in sort of a weird spot. Those ones kind of stuck in my head more than any of the other drills because I was like, this is so unique. I can't believe this actually helps. But like you said, it is important, especially during that time of the year. Okay, great to know. We will look forward to that story. And you go home. Get out of here.
I will.
Go hang with your big window. And
my food.
And your food, and enjoy the cloud cover. Do we have anything extra tasty coming for lunch today?
Well, I haven't eaten today, so I know your girl's hungry. But this is just like, I guess, breakfast for lunch. I'm going to make scrambled eggs, chicken sausage, hash browns, the ones they're from McDonald's. And I might treat myself to I love grapes and cheese together, so probably do that too.
Interesting combo, sort of a mini charcuterie board.
Mini, but I just got the idea. This is so... I'm not stupid, but it's so kiddish.
No
I got
stupid
it. I
ideas.
got it from Ratatouille. Remember that scene where Remy was like eating the cheese and the grapes together, and I was like, "Why haven't I done that before?" And so as a kid, I did it, and I was like, "Wow, this is actually fantastic." And ever since then, I will buy slices, like mini slices of cheese, and white and red grapes, and just eat them in tandem.
Can I tell you guys something embarrassing?
You haven't watched Ratatouille?
Never seen Ratatouille.
Wow, that's a great movie.
And it's not because I don't want to. It just never. It passed me by. I missed it. I was at that time in my life where I was like, I'm not watching animated movies. I'm a cool teenage guy, you know. And so I missed it. I need to go back. I need to revisit Ratatouille.
It's actually probably one of my favorite animated movies.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, because I think that the animations were just beautiful because it's set in Paris. And it's just all about food. I mean, I've seen people recreate actual ratatouille, like the actual dish. I'm like, it takes so much time and preparation. I couldn't even do it. But it's a really, really good movie.
Okay, I do. You know what I have seen. You know what I am into? Grapes and cheese. At all times of life. Okay, Taylor, you're the best. Enjoy the Ratatouille-inspired snack.
Thank you.
And we look forward to that story later on.
Sounds good.
Okay, now what do we got? 1:15. I think it's time we take a break. We've got multiple live events going on. As soon as we get back, we'll start to explore some of the things happening right now here on Live Impact News. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. As always, a treat to have Taylor Stephenson in here to, excuse me, to give us a little taste of spring, a little bit of the forecast, a look ahead to the warm temps to come this week, and of course to the insanely foggy day that we are working with right now. Now, we have a Senate hearing going on today. It is the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem, of course, has been in the news throughout the course of President Donald Trump's second term due to the various headlines that have come from immigration enforcement here in the United States. Now, Kristi Noem testifying before the Senate. Let's go live out to that hearing.
Enforcement of our immigration laws. They did so for 4 years when they controlled the White House. Just last week, they refused to stand and support President Trump's call to protect American people during the State of the Union. But Homeland Security includes other critical entities like Secret Service, FEMA, TSA, Coast Guard that Democrats refuse to fund and whose workers aren't getting paid. The primary responsibility of the federal government is to keep the American people safe. So it's critical that Democrats fund DHS and the end of this reckless political exercise. The hearing record will remain open for 1 week. Members should get their questions to the secretary at the end of the week. My expectation is that the department will answer the committee's questions for the record. Senator Noem, Secretary Noem, Senator Cruz is going to adjourn this meeting.
Okay.
I'm going to go to another meeting. I thank you for your appearance today. Senator Cruz.
You.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary.
Yes, hi, Senator.
Congratulations on a grueling morning. I am the last thing between you and returning to work. Let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for accepting the charge to protect this nation at a time of enormous peril and at a time, sadly, of far too much politicization and demonization of the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security was founded in the wake of the September 11th attacks, after nearly 3,000 Americans were murdered on our soil. It exists because we learned at terrible cost that vigilance is not optional. And the success of vigilance is quiet and often ignored. It is measured not in headlines, but the absence of them. The flights that land safely. The plots that never materialize. The threats that are intercepted before they reach our communities. Like sentinels standing watch at the walls of a city, the men and women of DHS guard the homeland day and night with extraordinary dedication and professionalism. And yet, over the past 18 days, Democrats have shut down the very department tasked with that mission, weaponizing the budget process to advance political disagreements. The same voices that once called to abolish ICE and defund the police have now left the sentinels unsupported and the watchtower dark. That is what the Democrat shutdown has done. Let's get to the truth. For the American people, this oversight hearing is about three things: where we were, what has been accomplished, and where we need to go next. Let's start with where we were. Secretary Noem, when you walked into DHS, what was the state of operational control at the southern border that you inherited?
There was no operational control. In fact, our Border Patrol agents and federal officers were being forced to help facilitate the invasion of dangerous criminals and aliens into our country.
Were daily encounters at or near historic highs?
Yes, they absolutely were at historic highs. That's the worst we've ever seen.
Between 2021 and 2024, the Biden administration released more than 13 million illegal aliens into this country after encountering them at the southern border. Is that correct?
Yes, that we know of. There could be millions more.
DHS data reflects during this period of mass releases into the interior, crimes committed by foreign nationals included at least 15,000 homicides and more than 20,000 sexual assaults. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I will say, these numbers are not abstractions. And I will say to all the angel families here, thank you for being here. Thank you for holding the photographs of your children, of your spouses, of your parents, of your brothers and sisters who should be with you. Names like Jocelyn Nungary and Laken Riley and Rachel Marin. Jocelyn, just 12 years old, was killed just miles from my house. Raped and murdered by two Venezuelan gang members that the United States government had apprehended and then released. And when they were released, they traveled to Houston, Texas, and they kidnapped a 12-year-old girl and raped and murdered her. In your time at DHS, has anyone in the leadership of the previous administration explained why the hell they let so many violent criminals free in our country?
No, they haven't. In fact, under the Biden administration and Mayorkas's leadership, they closed the victim's office at ICE, the Voices office that would help families that suffered a loss like Jocelyn's family and Laken's family and Rachel's family. They had no resources, no way to track court appearances or to get counseling services, no support whatsoever. They purposely closed that down to punish these families even more.
So it wasn't just murderers and rapists that were being released in this country. The open border under the Democrats also became a pipeline for poison, killing our children. Secretary Noem, when you took office, is it correct that fentanyl was the leading cause of death for Americans between the age of 18 and 45?
That's correct.
Was the volume of fentanyl crossing our southern border at or near record levels?
Yes, it was.
And would you agree that when operational control collapses, cartels exploit that chaos?
They exploit it and they become enriched from it.
So now let's talk about what has been accomplished under President Trump's leadership. Under President Trump's leadership, we have had 0 illegal aliens released for 10 straight months. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In President Trump's first year back in office, how many illegal aliens have left the United States?
2.5 million have left voluntarily, and we have arrested, detained, and removed close to 700,000 now.
And how many known or suspected terrorists have been removed?
We have over 1,500 now today that have been apprehended and are being brought to justice.
In the first 100 days of the second Trump administration, is it correct that daily border encounters decreased by approximately 93%?
Yes, that is correct.
That encounters with gotaways, those who are escaping apprehension, decreased by roughly 95%.
That is correct.
And that illegal crossings overall fell by 99%.
That is correct.
And how much in illegal drugs are we interdicting at the border?
Well, fentanyl has dropped by 56% in just the last year, from 2024, where there was historic highs coming into the country, to historic lows in 2025 under President Trump's leadership.
And I would note that securing the border, targeting narco-terrorists, arresting and prosecuting Nicolas Maduro, all of those have had extraordinary effects. Is it correct that nationwide the murder rate has decreased 20% in the last year?
It has. It's at a historic low. In the last 125 years, we are at the lowest murder rate that our country's experienced.
Is it also correct that the number of drug overdose deaths in America has decreased 20% in the last year?
That is correct.
That literally means there are thousands of Americans who are alive today, who would not be alive if President Trump had not been reelected and if Republicans had not won control of Congress. Would you agree with that?
That is correct.
It means, tragically, that had the Democrats' open border policies continued, there would be more and more rows of people, Americans holding pictures of loved ones. We don't know who the loved ones are that weren't murdered this last year. We don't know who the loved ones were that didn't die of fentanyl overdoses, but we know that many more Americans are dead. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You know, I will tell you a particularly infuriating illustration. Several weeks ago, the Houston Chronicle had a front page story, top of the fold. Banner headline, murder rate in Houston, Texas decreases by 18%. And Heidi, my wife, handed me the article because she knew it would piss me off. And she was correct. The article says the murder rate has dropped 18%. Experts are baffled as to why, and we can think of no reason whatsoever why the murder rate would drop. It clearly is not connected to anything that is happening anywhere. Madam Secretary, is it a reasonable inference that arresting and deporting murderers and gangbangers results in fewer murders?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And that arresting and deporting drug traffickers and stopping narco traffickers results in fewer people dying of drug overdoses?
That's correct.
It is amazing that cause and effect is so difficult to figure out. Now, where do we go from here? As we sit here today, are there Border Patrol agents right now working with zero pay?
The agents and law enforcement officers are being paid. Some of the support staff and administrative staff is not able to.
Is the shutdown making it harder to sustain the enforcement gains that the American people demanded?
Yes, it is.
Does the funding instability affect morale within the department?
It does. Overwhelmingly, people at the Department of Homeland Security love their jobs and come to work recognizing how important their mission is. But they become discouraged when they can't pay their bills and can't feed their families, and especially when they have multiple shutdowns, which tells them that members of this body and the Democratic Party don't think they're important enough to get paid for the work that they do.
Now, we are right now engaged in military conflict with Iran. At this time, do you assess that there is a real danger and risk of terrorism in the United States?
Every day there's a real danger and risk of it, but it is elevated at this time with the conflicts that we see going on overseas.
Well, and tragically, this past Sunday in Austin, Texas, we saw that unfold. A mass murderer who arrived wearing a sweatshirt that said "Property of Allah," who was wearing a T-shirt with the flag of Iran, who had a Koran in his car, opened fire on a bar in Austin, Texas. Among those murdered, Ryder Harrington, age 19, Sabbath Hashan, age 21, and Jorge Peterson, age 30. Secretary Noem, is it correct that this mass murderer was born in Senegal?
He was, and then he was naturalized during the Obama administration.
He was naturalized in 2013. Would you agree that weaknesses in screening, vetting, or oversight, even in years in the past, can reverberate years later with deadly consequences?
Yes, absolutely. That's why in green cards and naturalization purposes, the last several years under the Biden administration, we are re-vetting individuals from countries of concern.
And despite the risk of more terrorism, of more Americans being murdered by radical Islamic terrorists, Democrats are nonetheless voting over and over again to cut off funding to the Department of Homeland Security.
Mm-hmm. And encouraging resistance against our law enforcement, encouraging violent rioters to continue to resist us and to protest against ICE and the operations that we do to uphold the law.
You know, it wasn't long ago that common sense prevailed, that there was bipartisan agreement, that we agreed we all support the police, we all support law enforcement, we all want to see criminals in jail, we believe murderers should be in jail, we believe rapists should be in jail, we believe child molesters should be in jail, we believe gangbangers should be in jail. Today, tragically, the Democrat Party has decided they are the party of illegal immigrants, they are the party of murderers and rapists and child molesters and gangbangers. And the men and women who are on the wall, the men and women who are defending us from these violent criminals, to the Democrats, they are the enemy. Mm-hmm. And they engage in rhetoric that is shameful, attacking Border Patrol agents, attacking ICE agents, calling them Nazis, calling them Gestapo, calling them terrorists, cheering on violence against law enforcement. It is utterly shameful. Where I want to speak to the men and women in your department, I want to speak to those Border Patrol agents, those ICE agents, all the men and women who are on that line. I want to say thank you. We appreciate you, your service, your courage. 31 million Texans say thank you. And by the way, the violence is occurring in Democrat states where it's cheered on by Democrat politicians. Mm-hmm. That's true. It is shameful. And Secretary Noem, I want to say thank you for getting up and going in and doing your job every day. Thank you for making my family safer. Thank you for making the families of 31 million Texans safer. Thank you for the honorable work of the Department of Homeland Security, and to everyone there, God bless you, and again to the Angel families, thank you for speaking out and having the courage to say your loved ones mattered. They are not forgotten.
Okay, we anticipate another senator speaking here soon, so I wanted to make sure we came back into the studio to provide some context to some of what was being said by Senator Ted Cruz there in the hearing of Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Let's do a little bit more on the background of the individual who allegedly perpetrated the shooting at the Austin bar over the weekend. It was mentioned by Senator Cruz, or perhaps by Secretary Noem, I believe, how he was naturalized during the Obama administration. According to reports from CNN, that is true. He naturalized on April 5th, 2013. However, this individual from Senegal entered the United States on March 13th, 2000 on a B-2 tourist visa, according to a Department of Homeland Security's report to CNN. In June of 2006, he adjusted his status to lawful permanent resident based on marriage to a U.S. citizen, and again, originally from Senegal. So arriving in the United States in March of 2000, adjusting his status in June of 2006, naturalized as a U.S. citizen in April of 2013, in order to provide more context to some of what was said there, again, regarding the individual who was alleged to have perpetrated the mass shooting at an Austin, Texas bar this weekend. Now, in terms of some of the numbers surrounding immigration, there were statements that some 13 million illegal immigrants were allowed into the United States during the Biden administration. Excuse me for paraphrasing. Obviously, that was quite a while ago during the hearing that we heard that statement. That was a long question and answer session right there. But the number 13 million was thrown about in terms of how many immigrants entered the United States during the Biden administration. But according to the pewresearch.org website, the number of unauthorized immigrants in the United States reached an all-time high of 14 million in 2023, after 2 consecutive years of record growth. But in total, the number of unauthorized immigrants in the United States reached an all-time high of 14 million in 2023. Granted, that is back in 2023, before President Biden's presidential term had concluded. However, that does provide a counterpoint to the assertion that 13 million illegal immigrants were allowed into the United States, period, during the Biden administration. Again, granted, we do not have the numbers from 2024. This particular data set goes through 2023, but still provides some context to what was being said. The increase of 3.5 million in those 2 years, 22 and 23, is the biggest on record. And data from 2023, the most recent available for developing a comprehensive detailed estimate, according to this particular Pew Research study. Now, it appears as though that hearing has ended, though we do have some recorded instances of question and answer sessions between senators and Secretary Noem from earlier that we will likely play now. To add even more context, the label unauthorized immigrants captures a complex array of statuses, including immigrants who entered the U.S. legally. The label is not perfect. It groups together immigrants living in the country with impermanent precarious statuses. The term has been used for decades by researchers who develop estimates of the population and is generally used in this Pew Research report. So this is not a one-to-one comparison necessarily with what was being discussed, but it does, again, provide some important context to that particular line of questioning, as that number has been used in different at different times in public rhetoric from elected officials. So if we could even find a maybe sort of a more comprehensive statement from the Pew Research Center about that particular number, we will bring that to you. But again, it's something that we are continuing to research while we're here live on air. But we wanted to make sure we provided some of those baseline numbers just to make sure that there is as much context as possible. We know that Newsweek.com did an extensive report on this, a fact check, if you will. There have been claims that 20 million illegal immigrants entered the United States under Joe Biden. That is not the number we heard during that particular Senate hearing. This says border encounters have been high. Encounters do not equal successful entry, and the total unauthorized population did not increase by 20 million during the Biden administration. The figure cited in the claim is not supported by publicly available data or independent analysis. That is a Newsweek.com fact check article, but that is in regards to 20 million illegal immigrants, a number that has been used publicly at other points. 13 million is the number that we heard in that particular Senate hearing. So just attempting to continue to make sure that all of our bases are covered as we work through today's hearing with Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and the Senate. Now, that was Senator Ted Cruz going back and forth with Noem in that particular instance. Okay, let's go ahead and play some of our recording from earlier in regards to this particular Senate hearing. And if we don't mind, what we're doing right now is what you will sometimes see on Live Impact News, which is Nia Campbell and myself sort of setting up our content as we go. These things will develop in real time, and it looks like we are ready, however, with some other portions of that Senate hearing. Since it ended a little earlier than we thought it was going to as a live event, we're going to go to some of our recorded portions now. Naya, are we ready to play that, or do we need a couple seconds? Okay, we'll go ahead and play that now to sort of wrap up this particular segment. We'll move on to more news, including the North Carolina primaries. Let's listen in on a little bit more of what we heard earlier from Secretary Noem's hearing right now.
No, sir, I did not. And in fact, where you're seeing that is in a news article of anonymous sources. And anonymous sources say a lot of things, but I've never said that at all.
Well, here's what you said on the record. I'm going to read your words. Quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen.
Sir, where did you see me say that at? You read that in a news article with no sources affiliated to it.
You said it on the record on January 27th of 2026. Did I read your words accurate?
I enjoy working with the president and with Stephen Miller, and that day we were working to get as much information to the American people as possible. That is what we'll continue to do, and as that happens, we'll go forward.
Do you think it was fair to blame Mr. Miller?
Sir, I did not do that. You're reading from a newspaper article with anonymous sources.
Are you denying that you said that?
Sir, I'm not going to speak to that situation that is relayed on anonymous sources that no one has heard me say that.
It was you.
No. Who reported that to that newspaper?
They're quoting you on the record, saying it's Stephen's fault. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, as Secretary of Homeland Security, you oversaw Operation Metro Search. Is that correct?
Yes, as Secretary, I oversee ICE and CBP and HSI officers that were there doing their work.
3,000 ICE agents, border control to Minnesota, outnumbering our 10 Metro Police departments, outnumbering by 3 to 1 the number of sworn police officers in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Is that correct?
Yeah. We were working to do targeted operations against criminal illegal aliens, and we needed to do that in a safe manner to make sure that we could ensure the safety of our law enforcement officers.
2 of my constituents, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, were killed. They should be alive today. In fact, in 1 month in the city of Minneapolis, when you look at the 3 fatalities that were results of shooting, 2 of 3 were committed by federal agents. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
So your agents, not only their actions resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent American citizens, but they repeatedly violated my constituents' First Amendment rights to assemble. You say you believe in the Second Amendment right to bear arms, but Alex Preddy was criticized repeatedly by officials in the administration for having a lawful permit to carry and having a gun. Your agents violated the Fourth Amendment rights of my constituents by ramming through doors of innocent people's homes, innocent citizens' home, without any kind of a warrant, and violated the Fifth Amendment right to due process. So as I've shared with my colleagues, if you believe in federalism, in freedom, and in liberty, you should be horrified by what the Department of Homeland Security did in Minnesota. So my first question is, having spoken to Mr. Homan, what is the exact number of DHS agents still in Minnesota?
Well, I believe that there is still close to 650 there, counting the investigators that are there, working to get to the bottom of the unprecedented fraud that has been found in the Medicaid funding.
Was 5-year-old Liam involved in that fraud? As you know, I am all in on prosecuting fraud. I put in place the U.S. attorney who exposed the fraud under the Biden administration and brought the bulk of the prosecutions, and also recommended to Mr. Blanche that Joe Thompson be the acting U.S. attorney who led those prosecutions and now has left the office because the Department of Justice asked him and many others to investigate Renee Good's wife instead of doing their jobs doing fraud. So what I want to know is, when are you going to get down to the original footprint as promised to us?
we're continuing to work at that, although those investigators will continue to stay there to get to the bottom of that fraud, to make sure that those vulnerable people that rely on those programs actually get services from those federal dollars that are spent, that it's not stolen by criminals and used by individuals to enrich themselves and send it out of the country.
Secretary Chung-Li Tao, are you aware that agents bashed in the door of a U.S. citizen, a Hmong elder with no criminal record?
I can't speak to the specifics of that case.
Did you see the photos of that man being dragged out of his house in Crocs and in his underwear?
Yes, I did.
Do you believe that he was involved in fraud?
I do not know where that status of that investigation is.
Are you aware that he is a son of a beloved nurse that treated our soldiers in Vietnam?
I believe that we have laws in this country that need to be enforced and need to be applied equally to
Your agents,
everyone.
speaking of enforcing the laws and following the laws, did they have a judicial warrant when they rammed through an American citizen's door?
Our law enforcement officers follow the same protocols and procedures that all law enforcement do.
Are you aware that he tried to show his identification to show that he was American citizen and they didn't want to see it?
Again, these officers conduct themselves in processes. If something was done inaccurately, then certainly we will make sure that we correct it and rectify it in the future.
Are you aware that the person they were looking for was in prison and had been in prison for years?
Yes, I am. That's a target. Yes, we do targeted operations going after and looking for.
Do you agree that it is unacceptable for your agents to ram into someone's door and drag someone out in their underwear in below zero temperatures when they have the wrong guy?
Our officers conduct targeted operations and utilize the law processes that are given to them and the
tools.
tools.
You will not answer that you think that's wrong.
They needed to identify that individual, and
they couldn't identify him by looking at his identification. Instead, they had to drag him out, throw him in a car, and drive him around for an hour. How about pulling off-duty police officers, Madam Secretary, every single one of whom made clear who they were? They were people of color, off-duty police officers. In Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, the chief described how one off-duty officer, someone of color, a U.S. citizen, was stopped and confronted by ICE agents with their guns drawn, demanding her proof of citizenship. As Chief Bruley said, I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident, but the other chief said it had happened to their own officers. Why were these officers stopped?
We have thousands of law enforcement operations that we do every single day.
Do you think they were stopped because they were people of color? Were they racially
and drug
profiled?
Traffickers off our streets. When I look at these American families that have been victimized by criminals that we have removed from cities and from communities, I'm grateful for the work that our ICE officers do. And by your only focusing,
are you defending stopping off-duty
I would like to hear you talk about some of the operations that we've done
a Hmong
to bring
elder
people
out of
to
his
justice.
home?
When you only talk about these situations like this that we are conducting, and you don't talk about the good work that they do to protect people from being victimized by people that are in this country that want to conduct violent crimes against them or take advantage of them. The laws need to apply to everyone, and we're out there enforcing the law.
I am a former prosecutor,
Context is
Ms. Nome,
incredibly important.
I have always
in every
worked
situation.
with our police well, but that's not what was going. These ICE agents were not following police procedures. After the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, when I spoke to Alex's parents, they told me that you calling him a domestic terrorist, this was directly from them, the day after he was killed. A nurse in our VA, Alex, one of the most hurtful things they could ever imagine was said by you about their son. Do you have anything you want to say to Alex Preddy's parents?
We were relying in the hours after that incident that was so horrific on information we were getting from the ground from our agents.
I just asked if you had anything you wanted to say to the parents or to the family of Renee Good after you called them domestic terrorists.
I can't even imagine what they have gone through in the loss of their son and the loss of their family members.
But how about specifically calling them domestic terrorists without any evidence of that?
Sir, ma'am, I did not call him a domestic terrorist. I said it appeared to be an incident of.
I think the parents saw it for what it was. After the killings, the federal government refused to cooperate with state law enforcement. Agents blocked Minnesota investigators from accessing the scene. I know because I got directly calls from the mayor. I tried to call the DOJ. I tried to do everything I could because they were very worried about what was going to happen immediately, especially after Alex Preddy's death. Do you think that blocking local law enforcement from the scene of a shooting makes people safer? Yes or no?
Actually, our HSI law enforcement officers risked their lives on that scene, preserving evidence and keeping the violent rioters away from the evidence so it could be preserved for the investigation.
What life was lost at that scene, Secretary? No.
Yes, I understand
It was
that.
Alex Preddy's life
And
that was
after it
lost.
became very...
I believe it is in the interest of justice to have a full and transparent investigation.
Yes, the investigation's being led by FBI and internal investigations as well into this incident.
Will you commit to reversing the decision to cooperate with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, an agency of seasoned professionals that the agents worked with directly, FBI agents worked with directly to investigate after the shooting assassination of Speaker Hortman, after the killing of those two little kids in that church with the bullets going through those stained glass windows? In both incidents, our federal and local law enforcement worked together and are working together in those investigations. But they have been blocked, the locals have, from being part of this. Why is that, Ms. No?
The FBI is leading this investigation, and I would leave that question for them to answer.
Thank you.
Before Senator Blackburn, without objection, I'll introduce into the record unaccompanied children case study that the Trump Health and Human Services provided to my office. These records describe horrible cases in which children were forced to work to pay smuggling fees, physical assaulted by sponsors, and denied a chance to attend schools. The unaccompanied children case study are further evidence of the previous administration's policies to put children in harm's way. I appreciate the cooperation of the Trump administration. Is there any objection?
Mr. Chairman,
Proceed.
I do not object, but I would like to have unanimous consent to enter into the record the details of the 3 instances where the Secretary referred to the victims that we've discussed and as engaged in acts of domestic terrorism. We have the exact statement, the exact date and time that you made those statements. I'd ask unanimous consent to put those in the record.
On both requests, any objection? No objection heard. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, thank you for being here today. And I want to thank you so much for the work that DHS and FEMA have done in Tennessee with the recent ice storm, but also previously with Hurricane Helene, and the responsiveness we have gotten from FEMA, the difference from the previous administration and your administration has been noted by people in Tennessee, and I just want to express my gratitude to those employees that are working so hard. So we truly are grateful for that. I want to go back to something Senator Durbin said in his opening statement. He referred to the Biden policy, immigration policy, as sensible and humane. And in his comments, he said there was a sensible and humane way to deal with immigration, but he felt like Biden's policy was sensible and humane, and what you all are doing is not sensible and humane. And this struck me because the Biden administration allowed hundreds of thousands of those illegally entering the country. We have seen hundreds of thousands.
Okay. We do not mean to cut off Senator Blackburn in the midst of her comments, but we have now heard Senator Ted Cruz and his question and answer with Secretary Noem. We have heard Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota and her question and answer with Kristi Noem. So we are going to move on from this hearing. We're going to explore some other headlines. Let's do a little bit more context and confirmation on some of the information that you heard from Senator Klobuchar. Now, she mentioned Chong Lee Tao. Chong Lee Tao, she talked about how he was pulled from his home without a warrant, wearing only his underwear, again, paraphrasing, but something to that effect. Now, let's go through that story from pbs.org and add a little bit more context and fact-checking here. Now, federal immigration agents forced open a door and detained a United States citizen in his Minnesota home at gunpoint without a warrant, is what the first paragraph reads here. Chong Lee Tao told the Associated Press that his daughter-in-law woke him up from a nap and said that U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents were banging at the door of his residence in St. Paul. He told her not to open it. Masked agents then forced their way in and pointed guns at the family, yelling at them, according to Tao. He said, quote, "I was shaking. They didn't show any warrant. They just broke down the door." This, again, of course, was amid the surge of federal agents into Minneapolis and St. Paul. And Tao, who has been a U.S. citizen for decades, said that as he was being detained, he asked his daughter-in-law to find his identification, but the agents told him they didn't want to see it. Again, this is according to Tao. Instead, as his 4-year-old grandson witnessed, Tao was let out in handcuffs wearing only sandals and underwear with just a blanket wrapped around his shoulders. Videos, of course, captured the scene. Many have seen those videos online. Tao said agents drove him to the middle of nowhere and made him get out of the car in the frigid weather so they could photograph him. He said he feared they would beat him. He was asked for his ID, which agents earlier prevented him from retrieving. Agents eventually realized he was a U.S. citizen with no criminal record, Tao said, and an hour or two later they brought him back to his house. There they made him show his ID and then left without apologizing for detaining him or breaking his door, according to Tao. So, again, that is the situation. Then we heard targeted operation from Secretary Noem, and Amy Klobuchar saying the person who was targeted was already in jail. We do have more information here on PBS. The Department of Homeland Security at the time described the ICE operation at Tao's home as a targeted operation seeking 2 convicted sex offenders. Quote, "The U.S. citizen lives with these 2 convicted sex offenders at the site of the operation," DHS said. The individual refused to be fingerprinted or facially ID'd. He matched the description of the targets. Tao's family said in a statement it categorically disputes the DHS account and strongly objects to DHS's attempt to publicly justify this conduct with false and misleading claims. He told the AP that only he, his son and daughter-in-law, and his grandson live at the rental home. Neither they nor the property's owner are listed in the Minnesota Sex Offender Registry. And we did hear, we can't draw a direct through line, but Senator Klobuchar did mention that the person they were looking for is in jail. Again, pbs.org does not have that information, but we wanted to provide as much background as we could and as much sort of circumstantial context as we could to that particular line of questioning. I know that we're deep in the weeds here, but anytime we hear a back and forth like that, we want to provide any extra information that we can. Okay, so that is enough of that hearing. We have spent a great deal of time on that today, as we should. The Department of Homeland Security remains shut down, actually, as Democrats and Republicans in Congress cannot yet work to an agreement to reopen the department. So that is another important aspect here. Now, of course, we've been covering every comment that we can from President Donald Trump over this week, as we are now in the midst of armed conflict with Iran after the United States and Israel attacked Iran over the weekend. Well, President Trump was available in the Oval Office today speaking to the press, and so we made sure to record that, and we're going to listen to those comments right now. Let's go out to Washington, D.C. for this recorded press conference from earlier today. Actually, first, I'm learning. First, let's take a break, and then we will get to President Trump. Naya, how was that? That was good. Caught myself.
Sounds good.
I'm eager to move on to the next topic. I want to get as much in as we can, but we got to do a commercial every once in a while. Let's do that first. Then we'll hear from President Trump as the conflict with Iran continues to rage on. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. I promise we are going to touch on these North Carolina primaries happening today. That is a critical piece of a major election coming up. But we talked about how we were going to listen in on President Trump, so let's go out to the Oval Office first, and then we'll get to some of those other stories afterwards.
Times, and we get along. Our countries get along very well. We have a great affinity for each other, and the Chancellor has been very well received in Germany. He's a very successful man, became the Chancellor of Germany, which is a big deal, and he's doing a very good job. In my opinion, a great job, very popular. And the relationship that we have in trade and everything else has been very strong. We've been able to do our deals, and it's been very strong. We'll obviously be talking a little bit about Iran today, and he's been helping us out. We've been very nice, actually. And that is coming along, as you see, very well. They have no Navy. It's been knocked out. They have no Air Force. It's been knocked out. They have no air detection. That's been knocked out. Their radar has been knocked out. And just about everything's been knocked out. So we'll see how we do. But we're doing very well. We have a great military, and they're doing a fantastic job. So we'll be talking about that. And we're talking about some very big trade deals. And those I know will work out too. So I just want to say it's a great honor to have you at the Oval Office. The beautiful Oval Office, beautiful White House. It's a special place, even from your standpoint. And you have some very special places too. And I look forward to being with you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, for having me here in this Oval Office for the third time now.
Yeah.
Really happy to have the opportunity to speak with you in these challenging times. We are on the same page in terms of getting this terrible regime in Tehran away, and we will talk about the day after, what will happen then if they are out. We have to talk about our trade agreement, which I would like to be in place as soon as possible. And we have to talk about Ukraine. There are too many bad guys in this world, actually, and this is an issue we have to talk about because we all want to see this war coming to an end as soon as possible. But Ukraine has to preserve its territory and their security interests, and, well, we will talk about that.
We will.
Looking
indeed.
forward to that.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you
That's some
for your
interesting.
hospitality. Thank you for letting me spending the night in your guest house.
That's
It's a
right.
very, very
Good.
comfortable
Hope
place.
you liked it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, great place. And a famous place.
That's
yeah.
good. Very
So
famous.
many former presidents.
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
Very famous place. Any questions, please?
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people, people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, you know, let's call them neutral, right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. I think and now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them. Someday they'll write a story and they'll say why they did that, but they hit countries that had nothing to do with what's going on. They were sort of leaving everything alone. All of a sudden, they had missiles shot in, which shows you the level of evil that we're dealing with. They'll hit people that were actually at least somewhat friendly, and they had no problems with it. Also hitting only civilian places, hotels and apartment buildings, and we're hitting them where it is much more appropriate. We're hitting them very hard. And the big scale hitting goes now. They no longer have air protection. They no longer have any detection facilities at all left. And so they're gonna be in for a lot of hurt. These are bad people. These are people that killed. I guess it's 35,000. It's coming out 35,000 over the last 3 weeks. Protesters, 35,000 violently killed. So these are bad people, and the leader of the pack is gone. And as you know, 49 people were taken out in the first hit, and I guess there was another hit today on the new leadership, and it looks like that was pretty substantial also. So they're getting hit very hard, and we'll see what happens. A lot of people are coming forward. A lot of the people you would least suspect want to quit. They want to have immunity. They're asking for immunity, and probably at some point they'll be dropping, as you would say, laying down their guns. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're just continuing to go forward. Our military is the #1 in the world by far, and we are. Everything's big in my book. Venezuela was big. This is big. The original hit, Midnight Hammer, was big. Everything you view is big, but it's not considered very big by some standards, by some of our standards. We have a military like no other military that's ever been built.
Mr. President, what's the worst case scenario that you have planned for in Iran?
Well, I don't know if there's a worst case. We have them very much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles. At some point, they won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers. We're hitting all of their missile stock. You know, they built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. That would probably be the worst. You go through this, and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who was no better. So we'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people. And we'll see what happens with the people. You know, they have their chance. And we've said, don't do it yet. If you're going to go out and protest, don't do it yet. It's very dangerous out there. A lot of bombs are being dropped. But I would say that would be about the worst.
Do you have someone in mind right now? Because you said all the people you did have in mind have been taken out. What do you think?
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, you know, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you'll have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody. But we have, I mean, Venezuela was so incredible because we did the attack and we kept government totally intact. And we have Delcy, who's been very good. We have the whole chain of command, and they've been, you know, look, the relationship's been great. We've taken out 100 million barrels of oil already, and a big part of that goes to them, and a big part goes to us, and it's been great. We paid for the war many times over, and we're going to be running the oil, and Venezuela is going to make more money than they ever made, and that's great for the people. The relationship has been great. It's been seamless. Nobody's actually ever seen anything like it. If you look at Iraq, where very stupidly everybody was fired, the generals were fired, the military was fired, the police were fired, the fire departments were fired, and all of the government workers were fired. So after, you know, people would call, they had no idea. And by the way, ISIS was formed. That's where ISIS came from, all of the fired people. We don't believe in that. So we'll see what happens, but first we have to finish off the military.
What do you think? Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. Some people like him, and we haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person, but we have people like that. We have people that were more moderate. You know, these were radical lunatics, and you know what they get? They get nothing. All they do is kill people.
Mr. President, what exactly was the imminent
You've
threat,
asked,
Mr. President?
not your turn.
What exactly
Not your turn, please.
Mr. President, you've been to take the heat off the Europeans to present to the healthy Mark Rutte called on the allies to also help you.
What does that mean?
Well, you have to ask Mark Rutte. He said not as part of NATO, but to be helpful to you in this.
Well, some of the European nations have been helpful and some haven't. And I'm, very surprised. Germany's been great. He's been terrific. Others have been very good, terrific. I think that the head of NATO, Mark, is fantastic. Okay, Mark Rutte. I think he's fantastic. But some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly. And so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it, for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Mr. President, what's your expectations towards Germany? What can Germany do and what should Germany do to help you in this country?
Well, I think they're doing it. I mean, they're letting us land in certain areas, and that's, we appreciate it, and they're just making it comfortable. We're not asking them to put boots on the ground or anything. I mean, we're just, they're a respected country. I have a very good relationship with the country. We have, in particular now, with this leader, with this new leader. I think he's an excellent leader. I had my differences with Angela. I said, you're hurting your country with immigration and you're hurting your country with energy. And we have a man sitting on my right that is, I think, pretty much the opposite of her on energy and the opposite on immigration. And I think he's doing very well.
Mr. President, commercial air travel right now is severely restricted in the Middle East, and thousands of Americans are stranded. Why wasn't there an evacuation plan, and will you send planes to get people out?
Well, because it happened all very quickly. We thought, and I thought maybe more so than most, I could ask Marco, but I thought we were going to have a situation where we were going to be attacked. They were getting ready to attack Israel. They were getting ready to attack others. You're seeing that right now. And a lot of those missiles that are hitting in, those are stationary. Those were aimed there for a long period of time at these other countries. So I think I was right about that. We attacked first. And if we didn't, it could have been, look, we're really decimating them. They're being decimated. And if we didn't, and by the way, we have massive amounts of ammunition. We have the high end. A lot of it was given away stupidly by Biden, very stupidly, for free. And I'm all for Ukraine, but they gave away a lot. As you know, when I give away ammunition, everybody pays for it. The European Union's paying for it. Then they can do what they want with it, but they are giving it, let's say, to Ukraine, and it's okay. But we gave away a lot of high end, but we have plenty. But we have unlimited middle and upper ammunition, which is really what we're using in this war. And we have really an unlimited supply. We also have a lot of the very high-end stored in different countries throughout the world. We're literally storing it there, which is actually something that I insisted on in my first term. I rebuilt the military in my first term. The military is great. Unbelievable amount of ammunition, or munitions, as they say, we're giving away to, the Wall Street Journal incorrectly covered the story when they said that it was given away to the Middle East. Not to the Middle East, it was given away to Ukraine. Very little was given to the Middle East. The Middle East would buy a lot, and some of the nations, because they're rich, they have a lot, but it was given away to Ukraine. And it just should have been done. Look, it's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, that war would have never happened. But we have a tremendous amount of munitions, ammunition at the upper level, middle and upper level, all of which is really powerful stuff.
Mr. President, a question to both of you. How worried are you that the rising prices for gas and oil are damaging the American economy, and also Mr. Chancellor?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. This is, of course, damaging our economies. This is true for the oil prices, and this is true for the gas prices as well. So that's the reason why we all hope that this war will come to an end as soon as possible, and we are hoping that the Israeli and the American army are doing the right things to bring this to an end and to have really a new government in place who is coming back to peace and freedom.
Yeah. Something had to be done. And it's been 47 years. They've been killing people all over the world for a long time. They were the kings and fathers of the roadside bomb. Soleimani, we killed him last term. If we didn't, I think it might be a different story today. They would have been much stronger and smarter than they are. But they did the roadside bombs. 95% of the people lost their legs, arms, had their face wiped out, just wiped out. I've seen some young people that it's so sad to watch. And that was almost all, 95% comes from Iran and with Soleimani. Soleimani loved his favorite weapon. He loved the roadside bomb. And when you see people walking around with no legs and no arms and a face that's been blown to hell, these people, what they have to go and the way they have to live, this is Iran. When you look at the barracks, the famous barracks, when you look at the hostages, when you look at a lot of hostages, when you look at all of the problems, they were really a purveyor of terror all over the world for many, many years. And it's something that had to be done, and I believe that if we didn't, because I see where Congress, if I didn't do this, guys like Schumer, who are losers, the Democrats, they're losers, that's why they're not here. Guys like Schumer would say, well, you should have done this. In other words, if I did it, it's no good. If I didn't do it, they would have said the opposite.
Okay, we're going to take a pause on President Trump because that is a recording that we have. We've listened to the first portion of it. If we have time to go back to it, we will, but there are other stories we have to cover. But President Trump talking, of course, about attacking Iran. He mentioned a couple things that were notable. I mean, one, he clearly states he thought that that Iran would attack. He thought they would attack first. He had that sense, paraphrasing again here, but that was a part of his decision-making process. He also spoke about how everyone, or a number of people that they potentially had in mind as new leadership in Iran has been killed, is already dead due to some of these attacks, presumably. And then he also mentioned how they're going to cut off all trade with Spain. He kind of had that statement in there as well based on some of their lack of cooperation. In terms of some of the numbers coming out of Iran, as of 9:40 a.m. today, 40 were killed and 246 injured in Lebanon by Israeli strikes over the last 48 hours. The State Department warning of an imminent threat of missile and drone attacks in Saudi Arabia. The U.S. consulate personnel in Saudi Arabia sheltering in place. The Kuwait Foreign Ministry posting on X that the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait was targeted by Iran. Saudi Arabian Foreign Ministry mentioning that an Iranian attack on the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh had been attempted. The Iranian Red Crescent Society says at least 787 people have been killed by U.S.-Israeli strikes in Iran since Saturday. That was as of 4:57 a.m. this morning. So updates on some of the death tolls and attacks that we have already seen here in the midst of this conflict. Now, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries speaking at the podium right now. Let's go live out to Congressman Jeffries and take a listen.
And Democrats are here to offer a better path forward. And our commitment to the American people remains. We're going to fight to make your life better in every way possible, to drive down the high cost of living, to fix our broken healthcare system, to deliver an immigration enforcement system that's fair, just, and humane, that focuses on violent criminals who are here illegally, not targeting law-abiding immigrant families or killing American citizens. And we are here as Democrats to make sure that we're spending taxpayer dollars in ways that are designed to improve the quality of life of the American people, not launching another endless war in the Middle East that is destined to cost more American lives and billions, if not trillions, of dollars unless Congress is able to stop Donald Trump in his tracks, which is what it is our intention to do. Questions?
We know the War Powers Resolution is an issue with Democrats that you're going to be bringing up. Unfortunately, as we know, even if it does pass the House and the Senate, it will be vetoed by the president. Is there anything more that Democrats can do?
It's important for us to take the step that is in front of us right now, which is to work to make sure that the War Powers Resolution, which is bipartisan in nature, passes on the House floor today. Every member of Congress needs to go on record. This is a matter of the utmost significance that the framers understood would perhaps be the most important decision that members of Congress would make. And in fact, they decided that in our system, they don't want a king-like figure being able to unilaterally decide to send American men and women to war. That's why in Article 1 of the Constitution, this power was explicitly given to the Congress. And it's now the Congress's responsibility to go on record because Donald Trump has unconstitutionally and illegally chosen to launch a war. He's describing it as a war. So-called Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is describing it as a war. Other members of the administration are describing it as a war. And as a requirement under the Constitution that it's members of Congress who make the decision as to whether to get us entangled in this kind of armed conflict. And that's what the resolution this week will be all about. Thanks.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. On immigration, the Trump administration has taken several actions regarding international students during its term. Most recently, it was revealed that Secretary Noem is reconsidering the optional practical training period for international students, which allows them to work for a bit after they graduate. Many conservatives in Congress have called for the program to be ended so students can be sent home early. What do you think about ending this program, and what does it mean about the U.S. being a place for people around the world to come and study?
I have to evaluate the particulars of this program, and we'll be happy to do so moving forward. Let me just say about Kristi Noem, she is a disgraceful, despicable, and deplorable human being. Why is she still around? Like, I do not understand this. The American people want her to go. People of goodwill want her to go. There are Republicans who want her to go. She's not qualified to lead the Department of Homeland Security or any other agency in this country, for that matter. I mean, this administration is so completely and totally out of control. They've so failed the American people. Exhibit A at this moment, of course, is Kristi Noem. How disgusting is it that she could not even apologize to the families of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy when given the opportunity to do so in their presence for slandering those two American citizens and calling them domestic terrorists when she knew better than that? So one, I don't have any confidence in anything that Kristi Noem stands behind, but I'm happy to look at the particulars of this program. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Speaker Johnson said yesterday that, in the Gang of Eight briefing yesterday, that a potential possibility of supplemental for the conflict came up. Can you confirm that did come up during the discussion? And where do House Democrats stand on the possibility of additional funding for this conflict going on, since we don't know how long it could go on?
Yeah, there was some reference made to it, but the nerve of these extremists to want to raise the possibility of coming to Congress for supplemental funding related to a war that we haven't even authorized yet. And so we're not there. What's in front of us right now is the War Powers Resolution that House Democrats will strongly support. And what is also clear is that the American people are strongly opposed to the actions that Donald Trump have taken in the Middle East. Because the president, as candidate, promised not to get us involved in an endless war. Why are we spending taxpayer dollars, billions of dollars, to bomb Iran as part of some regime change effort that the American people want no part of at this point in time, as opposed to actually driving down the high cost of living, lowering the cost of groceries, healthcare, housing, childcare, and electricity bills, which the American people are suffering under the crushing weight of right now because of Donald Trump's policies. We should be spending taxpayer dollars to drive down the high cost of living, not funding Donald Trump's unlawful, unauthorized, and unconstitutional endless war, to use his terms, in the Middle East.
It looks like there is now an alternate War Powers Resolution. Are you going to encourage people to support both, one over another? What is your thinking on that?
Haven't seen the alternate War Powers Resolution. Right now, our focus is on the resolution that will be on the floor this week.
But there's a few House Democrats who are saying they might not actually support the War Powers Resolution. What are you telling those folks to try to get them on board?
We'll have a conversation as a caucus tomorrow in the aftermath of the secure briefing that takes place this evening, but before the debate that occurs on Wednesday and, of course, the ultimate vote on Thursday. We'll continue to make the strongest possible case. There is going to be very strong Democratic support for the War Powers Resolution across the ideological spectrum. That I can guarantee you. And there may be a handful of members who have still not made a decision and want to participate in the secure briefing before they come to a final conclusion. Here's the thing. Having been briefed now, not once but twice, there is no evidence that has been presented to us that the United States was under threat of imminent attack from Iran. Zero evidence of that. In fact, many members of the administration have actually publicly now admitted that. So if in fact that was the case, it's hard for the American people to understand the rationale from launching a preemptive war in the Middle East that has now spread to more than half a dozen countries and resulted in the death of at least 6 brave, courageous, heroic service members. That's unacceptable. And we'll continue to have conversations as we move forward over the next few days, particularly in the aftermath of the administration's briefing. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Jeffries. Republicans are using the Iran operation as justification to put this DHS funding bill on the floor again this week. They've argued essentially that the resulting heightened threat level in the U.S. Means that the DHS shutdown needs to end. What are Democrats' response to that strategy?
Donald Trump launches an unauthorized war in the Middle East. He characterizes it as endless. He decides that he wants to spend billions of dollars to bomb Iran rather than spend taxpayer dollars to lower the grocery bills that are crushing the American people, and then wants to use his unauthorized war as an excuse to continue spending taxpayer dollars to brutalize or kill American citizens by continuing to unleash ICE without restriction on the American people. The whole thing is insane. Make it make sense, because it does not.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Back in 2011, Nancy Pelosi said that then President Obama didn't need congressional approval to bomb Libya. Now House Democrats say President Trump needs that approval to bomb Iran. What's the difference?
Well, obviously, Libya and the circumstances connected to that were very different than the circumstance that we face in Iran right now. I mean, I don't even understand the genesis or basis of that question, not suggesting that you're not asking it in good faith. But obviously, as I've indicated, first of all, I was not in Congress at the time. So we're dealing with what we're dealing with right now, which is a catastrophic, endless war, as Donald Trump has characterized it, without any justification that there was going to be a preeminent assault or attack on the United States of America, either in our homeland or as it relates to our interests in the Middle East. The administration is not even pretending like they have intelligence or information at this point, publicly. And certainly there's been nothing that has been presented to us privately to justify a preemptive strike of this nature that has triggered an all-out war in the Middle East. And by the way, Donald Trump is the one who said in the aftermath of the 12-day war that Iran's nuclear program has been completely and totally obliterated. Not my words, his words. So was he lying to the American people then, or is he lying now? When he tried to suggest a few days ago that this was in part about stopping Iran's nuclear aspirations. They're all over the place in terms of their justification because they have nothing that explains their decision affirmatively not to come to Congress. The Constitution of the United States is not a mere inconvenience. It's an absolute necessity when it comes to the things that have been spelled out quite clearly by the framers of the Constitution. What happened to Republicans being so-called originalists? Was that all a lie as well? Because under this president, my Republican colleagues who continue to act like nothing more than reckless rubber stamps for Donald Trump's extreme agenda, ignore his behavior, this wannabe king, when it comes to trying to strip away congressional power as it relates to the appropriations, strip away congressional power as it relates to tariffs, and strip away congressional power as it relates to the declaration of war. The Constitution is not ambiguous about all of these things, and yet we see Republicans continuing to bend the knee to their wannabe king. That's not us, and it will never be. Thank you all.
Okay, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries with a statement today on the conflict in Iran. Over the weekend, of course, the beginning with the United States and Israel attacking Iran. Now, we're going to stay in politics, but we're going to come a little bit more local here. It is primary day in North Carolina, which is the next step in a race that promises to be one of the most influential here in America as the midterms approach 9 months from now. Now, Republican Senator Thom Tillis is not seeking re-election. He's a two-term senator. He did vote no on advancing the One Big Beautiful Bill Act last June, and he has decided not to run for re-election. That means that a Senate seat is up for grabs. And anytime a Senate seat is up for grabs in a Congress that is this close, you are going to have very, very important elections. And this holds true, and it is only enhanced by the candidates that have decided to run. Now, there are a number of candidates in both the Democratic and Republican primaries. But there are two candidates that seem to stand out from the others. Of course, we need to wait and see the results of those primaries, but two candidates that have a resume that at least stands out from the resumes of the other candidates. Let's start on the Democratic side. Former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper is in the battle and on the ballot. Now, Roy Cooper has won every election he's run since 1986. He was elected the governor of North Carolina in both 2016 and 2020. Both of those years, Donald Trump carried North Carolina on the presidential ballot, and yet Roy Cooper won the governor's seat in both of those years. So, a heavy hitter on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, former Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley is expected to, or not expected, he is on the ballot as well to become the Republican nominee in Tuesday's primary election. So Cooper versus Whatley would be one of the most competitive and expensive races on the map because of how important that Senate seat in North Carolina is, being that you have candidates on both sides who have a lot of cachet, a lot of fundraising power, and who are seen by their parties as able to win. At least that's based on my observation here. Now, this would be the first election in North Carolina under the state's new congressional map. Remember, in October, this map was redrawn by North Carolina Republicans, one of the many dominoes to fall in the arms race of redistricting, if you will, a race that ultimately did reach Virginia as well. Recovery from Hurricane Helene is expected to be a major issue in this campaign, a massive natural disaster that greatly affected the North Carolina people. Now, Trump put Whatley in charge of recovery at the start of his second term, but Cooper was the governor of North Carolina during the time. So there could become this sort of proxy battle of the federal response versus the state response to Hurricane Helene, and maybe who did what, who's at fault for what, as that natural disaster comes back into the public consciousness with these two candidates running for that Senate seat. Now, I want to take a moment to pull up on 13newsnow.com a full list of the candidates running. It is primary day. If anyone is watching and heading out to vote in this particular election, I want to make sure that we continue to have all the candidates at least mentioned here on this primary day. So I apologize for the delay here in this report. I'm pulling up 13newsnow.com. Great website, by the way, Nia Campbell, 13newsnow.com. Feel free to visit for all of your local needs, including the ballot in North Carolina when it comes to this Senate seat. So, on the Republican side, of course, you have Michael Whatley, as we stated, the former RNC chair. You have Elizabeth Ann Temple, a music teacher. Michelle Morrow, a nurse and educator. Thomas Johnson, a business owner. Richard Danzy, an Army veteran and engineer. And Don Brown, a former Navy JAG officer and attorney. So you have 6 candidates there on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, in addition to Roy Cooper, the former governor of North Carolina, you have Robert Colin, a volunteer, Justin Dews, a Marine Corps veteran, Darrell Farrow, a former House candidate for North Carolina 3rd District, Oric Quick, a pastor and business owner, and Marcus Williams, an attorney. So 6 names on the Democratic side as well. So if you're going to vote in the primary, you can only vote for the party of which you're registered. If you're independent, you can vote in either one. Those are the names on the ballot for that critical Senate seat. Now, there's a number of other races in North Carolina primary day as well, but we are going to stick with our coverage of the Senate here today as what we'll look after in a closely watched race in North Carolina. Okay. Now, a case that we have been covering nonstop over the course of the past 3 weeks here is the Colin Gray trial. The verdict came down in that Colin Gray trial today. That verdict will be brought to you right here on Live Impact News after the break. Thank you for the reminder, Nia. Let's take a quick commercial. Okay, welcome back to 13 News Now Live Impact News. 13 News Now Plus, I should say. We put the tease out there for the verdict in the Colin Gray trial. Let's get into it. As we've talked about, Colin Gray facing numerous charges in relation to the 2024 Appalachia High School in Georgia shooting, which his then 14-year-old son is accused of committing. Well, today, Colin Gray, the father of Colt Gray, again, Colt Gray, the son accused of committing this shooting, Colin Gray, his father, Colin, the one on trial, found guilty on all counts today. Again, Colin Gray found guilty on all counts today. Fewer than 2 hours of deliberations before a jury found him guilty on all of those counts, including 2 counts of second-degree murder. It brought to a close a first-of-its-kind trial in Georgia of a parent of an accused school shooter. 2 students and 2 teachers, Mason Schermerhorn, Christian Angulo, the students, and Christina Arimi and Richard Aspinwall, the teachers, were killed in the shooting. Several others injured. Juror had weighed the central contention by prosecutors that Colin Gray had sufficient warning that his son was a risk to harm others and that it was criminally negligent to allow his son to access firearms. He was convicted on all 27 counts that he faced. So, a trial that we have been following throughout its duration now comes to a close with a guilty verdict. Among the trial's most pivotal moments, Colin Gray's daughter testifying against him, saying she felt pressured to cover for him when she was interviewed by investigators the day after the shooting. And of course, Colin taking the stand in his own defense, a portion of which we played here last week on Live Impact News. It says here a verdict that we see video of on your screen now on the top right and now full screen. Colin Gray, as you can see, largely did not react as the guilty verdict was read against him. Now, an individual did take to the podium in the stakeout outside of the courtroom. Let's listen to comment from after that guilty verdict in Georgia right now.
At what point in this investigation did you decide to charge the father?
It would have been in the first few days. Of course, we learned about the shrine in the house early on, which worried us. And then when we found out about the FBI 2 years before at the house, or a year and a half before, that started to connect the dots with us that he had a long time of knowledge. So we were leaning towards charging and probably did charge at that point. The text messages came in later and just reinforced our decision.
You had the opportunity to talk to jurors afterwards.
Yes.
What did they share with you? This is an extremely quick verdict considering the length of this trial.
They were very happy with our presentation. They thought we did a good job. They had some questions about things they didn't see, evidence they weren't allowed to see. We talked to them a little bit about that. And they just kind of talked us through where the children were, where the victims were, how they were doing. And we reassured them on that front.
What was the biggest piece of evidence that you think led to this guilty verdict by the jurors?
I don't think it was one piece of evidence. I think it was the fact that it was multiple pieces of evidence over a lengthy period of time that really showed them what was happening inside that house and all the warnings that were missed. I think it's one of those things, the defense talked about a slippery slope, but it wasn't like one parent missed one warning. This was multiple warnings over a lengthy period of time. And like we said, you just had to do one thing, take that rifle away, and this would have been prevented. So I think it was all of those things together.
You did get him to concede on the stand that he was told by Cole that that was Nicholas Cruz in those pictures. Do you think that that was a big moment for jurors?
Absolutely. I mean, how do you allow those pictures on your child's wall and not question it further?
At what point for you should he have locked up the guns?
That calls for a lot of speculation. I would have never given my 14-year-old child a firearm like that after Jackson County coming to my house. I think most parents wouldn't have done that. I don't know if that reaches criminal at that point, but it certainly reaches common sense.
What do you recommend for sentencing?
We haven't decided that yet. We're going to talk with the victims' families. I haven't actually spoken to them at all since the verdict came out, so we're going to go talk with them, get them ready. Sentencing will be at a future time when they can all be here and speak to the judge, and we'll discuss it with them and make a decision.
What have the victims' families told you prior to this, like throughout this process? Are there any comments that they've made that sort of stand out in your mind?
I don't think it was a common reaction. They all are reacting to their grief in different ways. They all have different perspectives, and we've listened to all of them and talked with all of them, and I don't think there's any common thing. I've just told them from the beginning that my plan was to prosecute this to the fullest extent of the law, and that's what we've done.
When you spoke to jurors, did they give any sense that they were trying to send a message?
I don't think I got that sense from them. I think they were looking at this case, these facts, and this law, and coming to a decision.
The defense actually blamed others in this case, said Dee Martin could have been to blame, said Lisa Butler. What do you say, or the mother should have known something? How do you explain that to viewers who haven't been watching this 2-week trial?
One of the things that came to light during our investigation was that the reason so many lives were saved at Appalachia was because of lessons we learned from prior tragedies. So I am all for looking at these things. What could we have done better? What can we do in the future to make our children safer? But the blame game, these were good people trying to make their best decisions as they could with limited information. The one person that had all the information was the one that didn't act.
Did you ever actually consider charges for Marcy Gray?
Absolutely. We found what she did.
Okay, unfortunately, we have to cut that post-court press conference off. There's about 4 minutes left in that, but Senator Tim Kaine has just taken the podium in Washington, D.C. We are going to go out to Virginia Senator Kaine right now, live.
Their promises, just like they're breaking their promises, as Senator Murray and Senator Schumer talked about, to bring costs down for everyday folks. And these are connected. When you use your money to wage war, you take money away from other priorities. When you wage a war that raises energy prices that are already too high, you're hitting people who are dealing with health care costs up, housing up, food up, groceries up, energy costs up. It's time for the president to keep promises, not break them. That's why I'm so glad that we're going to put everybody on the record tomorrow. Nobody gets to hide and give the president an easy pass or an end run around the Constitution. Everybody's got to declare whether they're for this war or against it. That will be the vote tomorrow. I appreciate leadership helping us get it scheduled at a time when everybody can vote and be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
The Republicans say that Democrats need to fund DHS ASAP in light of all of this. What is an update on your conversations with the White House?
Well, first of all, it's very easy for them to get all of this funded. Simply to agree to our common sense proposals on ICE and Border Patrol. These are proposals, what we've asked for is what every police force does. In terms of our negotiations, look, we're still far apart, but we're still negotiating and exchanging paper back and forth. Yes. Kaine. He's our war powers expert.
There are some members of the Democrats that are concerned about that as well.
Look, people ought to grapple hard with war questions. I mean, we shouldn't be at war without a debate and vote. That was what the framers intended. We protect our troops when we do it the right way. We put them at risk when we do it the wrong way. I mean, we came within a hairbreadth of 3 F-15 crews being killed by a friendly nation that shot our F-15s down. Why did they do that? Because there was no plan and no rationale. When you go into it without a rationale, and when the plan is half-baked, you end up with situations like that. We're acting because we love the troops. Our troops serve bravely, whether it's in Iraq or Afghanistan or Vietnam, they always serve bravely. The risk for them is bad civilian decision-making, and we're insisting upon good decision-making so we minimize the risk to our troops.
Yes.
If you could speak to the intelligence briefing, if there was anything you could share with regard to the risk of retaliation on American soil, anything that Americans should be concerned about, how this could ripple here at home.
Look, I can't talk about a classified briefing. As you know, at 3:30, all the senators will be able to ask questions there. I can tell you I left that briefing with more questions than I went in with. It was not a very satisfying briefing. Yes.
What's your reaction to what Secretary Rubio said yesterday
that the administration felt compelled to act because Israel was going to act with or without U.S. support in attacking Iran, and that casualties on U.S. bases in the region would have been higher if the U.S. had acted preemptively.
Trump just contradicted him, and it just shows you that they don't have a real answer as to what is going on, plain and simple. Yes, no, back there. Yes, you raised your hand. Yeah.
Do you expect a supplemental?
I can't hear you.
Do you expect a supplemental spending request from the Trump administration?
Well, you'll have to ask them. Thank you.
Okay, so there you have it. Senator Tim Kaine as well as Chuck Schumer speaking at the podium there. A brief update on what they are likely referring to. Kaine, Schumer, and Senator Adam Schiff announced that the Senate will vote on their bipartisan war powers resolution for Iran tomorrow. This is in a press release sent to 13 News Now. The bipartisan resolution was introduced on January 29th. It would stop President Donald Trump's illegal, unnecessary war with Iran and ensure any U.S. participation in hostilities against Iran is explicitly authorized by Congress. It does not prevent the U.S. from defending itself or Israel from an Iranian attack. And that is what likely what Senator Kaine was referring to by saying there needs to be a discussion. Okay, let's take one more commercial break, and then we'll come back with a brief update on the weather. It has cleared a bit outside. First a commercial, and then we'll wrap the show with a look around Hampton Roads. Okay, if you have been with us here for the entirety of the 2 hours on Live Impact News, first of all, thank you. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you hanging out with us for Live Impact News. We genuinely do everything we can to make sure that this show is productive and informative for those of you who watch. We really genuinely appreciate it. And if you have been with us for all 2 hours, you know we started this show with a weather report from Taylor Stephenson speaking about the remarkable amount of fog that was in our area today, and how typically that fog, a great question from Nia Campbell, actually, illuminating the fact that fog will oftentimes dissipate after the morning. But due to the conditions today, the specific climate today, the fog lingered for some time. This camera was completely and totally just, you could not see a thing. It was just, it almost looked like the camera was broken because there was so much fog in front of this camera. You could see nothing. Now, a clear view has started to return as the fog dissipates a little bit. How about City Center in Newport News? Again, it wasn't quite as bad, but there was a thin layer of fog throughout the city center area of Newport News. Definitely the top of the buildings were covered by that fog. And so that has also started to clear, as you can see right there. Still cloudy, no doubt about it, but the fog has started to clear. And then we go out to the ocean front at Virginia Beach, where it has really turned into a beautiful day at the beach. I mean, that is, again, it was foggy even out at the Virginia Beach oceanfront. Now, gorgeous day out there. And that, of course, is all a primer for tomorrow, which will be in the 70s. So we hope everybody enjoys it and joins us again for Live Impact News tomorrow.